Oh boy. So I finally got around to watching Mulan after seeing so many people talk about it, and yeah, it's not great. Before I go any further, I just want to let you know if you enjoy this content, please consider supporting me by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. I also have a Patreon where you can support me and get some extra behind the scenes content if that's your thing. Okay, back to the video. Where do I even start? I love the original animated Mulan, and it might be one of my favorite Disney movies ever, so I probably came into this remake with too high of expectations. Okay, so let's take a look first at Mulan's introduction in the original 1998 film.
Aya! Little brother! Little brother! Who's the smartest doggy in the world? Can you help me with my chores today?
What does this scene tell you about Mulan's character? Well, it tells you she's resourceful, she's clever, she's prepared.
I brought you.
Mulan.
I brought a spare.
Mulan.
Remember, the doctor said 3 cups of tea in the morning.
And she cares for her family, but she's clumsy, she hides things from her father, and she's far from the perfect daughter. And now let's compare that to how Mulan is introduced in the 2020 adaptation.
This way. Gently. Mulan, forget the chickens. It will come back. No!
And what does this scene tell you? Well, she's athletic, we know she has this thing called chi, but she's kind of dumb and stubborn and doesn't listen very well. So we begin with 2 very different takes on the same character, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with how both characters are established, but what really matters is where you take these 2 characters. And the thing is, when you take these 2 very different characters and place them on the same path, you can see where one of them doesn't really work. So in the original, Mulan causes an avalanche to save her fellow soldiers later on in the film, and this makes sense for her character. We've seen how clever and resourceful she is, and also how sometimes she doesn't fully think things through. We have a logical setup and payoff. But when Mulan 2020 tries to recreate this exact same scene, there's just a lot that makes it not work. She suddenly gets really clever, and this is completely different from the character that was shown to us at the beginning of the film.
Mulan!
There was no setup for this. There was no gradual development that led her to this decision. It was just like somebody flipped a switch and all her problems disappeared. They basically just shoehorned this piece from the original to try and please the fans. Additionally, the only reason why Mulan makes the decision to cause an avalanche in the first place was because she knows they are outmatched. She can't take on the entire Han army by herself, but in the live action version, she has this thing called chi, right? And lots of it. You can just see how there's some inconsistency with the storytelling. What was also very awkward was how they tried to tie the concept of chi to gender, which is like, I don't think this is how chi works, but you know what, whatever, suspension of disbelief, I'll roll with it. But then this adds another layer of inconsistency. So the point of suppressing her chi is to appear feminine, at least for the first 25% of the movie. But then for the other 75% of the movie, she's at war. Like, I literally can't think of a better time for you to use your chi power than now. But Mulan continues to suppress it. And why? They rationalize it as some strange psychological block that nobody understands, and yeah, the audience doesn't understand either. Wouldn't it make sense at the very least if you're trying to appear masculine to use your chi? The way the film utilizes chi also just takes away any merit that Mulan has as a symbol of feminism. It basically says that Mulan is only equal or superior to the men because of the powers she was born with, not because of anything else. The film basically says only special women can be equal to men. Other traits like work ethic, cleverness, ingenuity, traits that were prominent in the original Mulan, Apparently, you don't need any of that. The themes that come out of Mulan 2020 are fairly one-dimensional. The message of the film is essentially be who you are and everything will be okay, and there can be some good lessons that come out of that, but I believe the original Mulan does an equally great job of handling this theme while also diving into more complex topics of discussion. The live-action film treats identity as something very simple. You're either faking who you are, or you are the real you, and one is clearly bad and one is clearly good. But that lesson is kind of meaningless, I think, for most people, because not everyone is truly clear on their own identity. Let me illustrate what I mean by using just one example from my personal life. I know for me, as someone with Asian heritage, but having grown up in a westernized culture, there's always been a struggle in terms of knowing where I belong. I never felt a full sense of belonging to either of these two cultures. I grew up feeling a bit separated from the people around me because of things like my appearance, the food I ate, the language I spoke at home. So I was never fully ingrained, nor will I ever feel fully ingrained in the culture I grew up in. But if I were to visit a place of my heritage, there would be an even greater sense of non-belonging because I wasn't raised there, I've never been accustomed to those cultural norms, and I don't really speak the language very well. So there's always been a struggle in terms of what my identity is. So the lesson of be who you are and everything will be okay when you really don't know who you are becomes meaningless. I think the majority of identity struggles have more to do with not knowing who you are, as opposed to pretending to be something you know you are not. Where I think the original animated film shines is in how it dives deeper into these complexities of identity. Animated Mulan struggles a lot more with who she is. At the beginning, Mulan actually tries to fit in, Mulan tries to impress the matchmaker, all of this because she thinks it is the right thing culturally to do, even though it doesn't feel right. But in the live action, Mulan is resolute. She knows she doesn't want to be matched, and she ridicules the idea of getting matched, which leaves very little room for her to discover who she is. It's a small difference, but I think the animated film speaks volumes more to what identity truly means. Identity is not a dichotomy. Identity is made up of multiple traits and beliefs that coexist with one another. Identity can shift depending on context and setting, and most importantly, identity is about finding who you are. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, sorry for the delay in this video. It's been an incredibly busy month or so for me, so it's been hard trying to find the time to sit down and just write. No video last month, but hopefully I can make it up and do 2 videos this month, fingers crossed. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on these Disney remakes and what's your opinion of them. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and to support me on Patreon if you like this kind of content and want to see more. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.